Yo, what is up, everybody? Man, I am about 12 minutes late. Long story short, as you see, I got like a new little setup here. Actually pretty cheap. I got a camera, old camera that I had, bought a little, what is it, a camera stand, um, microphone I already had, and then just figured I could actually connect it here. I didn't know you could do that before. This shows how tech savvy I am. And I'm literally a signal officer in the Army, so it doesn't really bode too well. But yeah, just connected some stuff together, had a new setup. But long story short, I downloaded a couple of apps to try to help me stream properly, and they all didn't go well together. I'll say that, right? So logged in, everything was preset. I was excited about this call tonight because it's just me, and I'll explain why that is here in a second. Nothing crazy, but yeah, I had everything set, preset here, been practicing and all that kind of stuff. What I was going to take notes on what I'm going to talk about. My camera was set, stepped away to eat some dinner. My wife made some baked ziti, delicious. Stepped away to eat some dinner. I came back and then it had like camera error, and this is at like 6:45. And I'm like, dang, I'm starting to stress because I had 15 minutes prior. So I had to go through this whole process of deleting all these other apps so I could keep this app. And yeah, long story short, we're here now. Everything's fixed. We are blessed. And yeah, everything is going well, man. But I'd say so far been a crazy week, right? You guys can see the beard here. The last time you saw me, I did not have a baby. I had a baby. Richard Clayford Hanson Jr. was welcomed into the world on 10/26. So he has been nothing but a blessing. My wife is a freaking rock star. She labored for over 24 hours with no medicine, no nothing. Long story short, we had to end up going a different route to get the baby out, but everything ended up working well. God is good. He came out 8 pounds, 10 ounces. So he was a big boy, to say the least. And this man, it's crazy when you like he eats a whole bunch, just like me. But it's crazy when you look at him. Like, I guess one of my biggest revelations of being a father in a short period of time I am, when I look at him, I see myself. And it's like you get I get chills every time I stare at him. I'm like, man, like this is like a little version of myself, right? And just so innocent and sweet. And I just have so much to teach him. And I can't wait. I'm so excited to be a dad. And it's something I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. But all I have to say, you guys are not here to hear about me being a dad, hear about all that kind of good stuff. If you are logging in via Instagram or Facebook, just gonna be very honest with you guys, I cannot see your comments. So if you do have questions, which I think tonight's call will bring some questions. So if you do have questions, please log into YouTube, because YouTube will actually show the questions here on the side of the streaming platform I'm using, and I can make the questions, pull it up here so everybody can see it. It just makes everything better for everybody. So if you have questions, please jump into YouTube. I can't see comments on Instagram, can't see comments on Facebook till after the fact, and I feel bad for not being able to answer. So please log into the YouTube. I threw a link. It should be in my Instagram bio, as well as my story, as well as my Facebook bio. Just click the link, join in, and yeah, we'll get kind of started. But tonight, it is just me. My boy Kevin had to step away. He had a real estate networking event that he had to attend to, which I think is solid. As you guys know, that he is in multifamily. He has been a real estate agent, investor, broker for a long time, and is doing a lot of big things. So tonight he had to step away to a networking event. And I was like, bro, you go ahead and get it. I'm going to just do a little Q&A, explain what subject to is. I've had a few people reach out to me asking about real estate investing, asking about how I buy houses, asking about what I think is the best way to buy houses. And a lot of people don't know what subject to is. I didn't know what it was a couple of years ago, and most people wouldn't really know what it is. But we'll go ahead and take a dive into it. So what is subject to, right? Purchasing something subject to. So subject to is your way to, it's a process of taking over somebody's payments, taking over somebody's payments on a debt that they owe in exchange for something, right? So you can buy anything subject to. So subject to the existing mortgage, subject to the existing debt in place. I've seen people who have bought cars subject to, right? They took out a loan for a car. And then sold their car to somebody else via subject to, or they purchased cars subject to, meaning that they purchased somebody else's car with somebody else's debt attached to it and just continue to make those payments. You can buy houses that way. I've seen boats bought that way. Believe it or not, like HVAC units, like just crazy stuff that you'll see that bought subject to. And a lot of people don't know about it. And I would argue because you're not supposed to know about it, right? Because typically whenever you go out and buy something, that is extremely expensive, when in most cases, the bank is the one that profits from it, right? So the bank wants to profit from it. So they want to keep all of that stuff in-house. So people who don't know about subject to or don't know about creative finance as a whole, these are tools that you can add to your tool belt that can allow you to again, capitalize on a lot of different things, capitalize on, buying houses, buying cars, buying assets with little to no money down at really good interest rates. So a lot of people ask me, is like, oh, what do you think about the interest rates right now? I don't care about the interest rates, because you can buy houses at a 3% interest rates, 4% interest rates, and the going rate right now, what the Fed cut it like a quarter. So what is it, like 6.8 or 6.9? That's great, but it doesn't matter to me because I can buy houses at a lower interest rates, right? So best way to explain subject to, and I'll explain this the easiest way I know how, because I'm a visual learner, but I'm also a learner who learns via story. I mean, I got some little here. I can show some visuals here in the next few minutes, but I'm a learner by visual learner and a learner by stories. So Pace Morby, if you don't know who he is, write down his name, PACEMORBY. Write him down, look him up on YouTube. He is the creative finance guru. He is the person who taught me everything that I know about creative finance, buying things subject to, buying things creatively, and how just taking a deeper dive into my real estate journey and about all the different ways that you can acquire assets with little to no money down, right? He taught me everything I know. So a quick story on my real estate journey started roughly 4 years ago. In 2020, I had just graduated West Point. And roughly 2 months after I graduated, I did my first wholesale deal, and I made like $10,000 or $11,000, right? And I was like 21, 22. And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. I'm a new second lieutenant. There's a lot of money within real estate. So what did I do with that money? First thing I did was education. I was scrolling through. I was like, okay, how can I double this money or triple this money? What can I do to, repeat this process? And I stumbled across Pace Morby's creative finance mentorship. At the time, it was roughly maybe a few hundred to like 1,000 people in the group. Now that's grown over the couple of years to like 14 or 15,000 people in the group. It's freaking crazy within that community. But joined that because I wanted to learn about other ways that I could buy houses other than, cash, or other ways to wholesale houses other than just, the typical route, like offering cash. So I joined this group. But all in all, the story that he told me about understanding creative finance, right? And I was sitting on a Zoom call with him and a few other people on there. He was like, Rich, you've gone to Walmart before, and you've purchased stuff with a credit card, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, not a debit card, but a credit card. I'm like, yeah, no, I bought stuff with a credit card. And he's like, and on your way out, there's typically a greeter there that's standing there who checks your receipt or things. I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. He's like, okay, we can both agree when you bought those groceries with a credit card that you're technically not using your own money, right? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, okay, well, on the way out, well, how do we know that those are your groceries if you use somebody else's money to buy it? And I'm like, kind of thinking for a little bit. And he's like, the receipt. I'm like, okay, the receipt. Yes, the receipt is in my name. It has my name on the receipt, right? My credit card, even though I leverage, American Express's credit card, the receipt is in my name. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And he said, well, similar to that in real estate, the receipt in real estate is the deed, right? The deed to the house. That is your receipt. Even though somebody else purchased the house with a different mortgage, could be, USA, Chase Bank, whatever, purchased the house with a different mortgage, the deed, when you bought that house subject to, the deed is now in your name. The mortgage stays in the other person's name. Now, when he said that, it was kind of mind blowing, right? Because that was something that didn't make sense to me. And a lot of people, when they think that, they say, okay, first things first, it's an assumption, right? You're assuming the loan. No, it's what I thought, but no, it is not, right? And assuming the loan, the benefit, I guess the biggest difference between subject to and then a loan assumption, is when you buy something subject to, is you get the benefit of not having to worry about the 3 C's, right? You don't have to buy a house. Whenever you buy a house subject to, you don't necessarily have to, use cash to buy it. You don't necessarily have to use your own cash to buy it. You don't need to get a credit check, and you also don't have to have, credibility when applying that, right? If you're applying for a loan, or if you're assuming a loan, you will have to go through the 3 C's, right? So if you're assuming somebody's loan, I think for military folks are out there, think about VA loan assumptions, right? You come in, you see a house that you like, and you want that good interest rate, you'll apply to assume that mortgage. So what does that mean? If you assume that mortgage, you have to go through the process of getting a credit check. The bank does a background check on you. They need to know what credibility you have. So they need to see your W-2, proof of income, tax statements, the whole 9 yards. So run a background check on you to essentially make sure that you are a credible human being. And then on top of that, you're going to be responsible for the equity that house is whenever you assume somebody's mortgage, right? So that's loan assumption. Subject to, on the other hand, you don't have to do that, right? Whenever you are buying something subject to, again, the mortgage, the debt is in that person's name, right? But the deed is in your name. So as long as you continue to make those payments, no harm, no foul. And you can buy houses this way without having to go through a bank. There's no bank involved. All the transactions that I've been involved with via subject to, seen, transacted with, partnered on, all the ones that I've been a part of, there was no banks involved. It was me, the seller, and the closing attorney or a title company, right? And that was it. That is it in a nutshell. That is subject to. Now, I know that sounds a little bit easier said than done. And a lot of folks are like, well, how does that, make sense? Or why would anybody sell their house that way? And I actually got a couple of different reasons, right? And again, I'll tell a couple of different stories. So the reason I'm so big on this, and I think subject to, again, I think this is the best way to buy houses. I think it is the number one way to buy houses or to really acquire anything at scale or at mass, because whenever you're buying these houses, you don't necessarily have to use your own money. I've seen people who have bought houses. I've seen people who have bought houses and literally put no money down. Not like and not like no money down. I'm talking about buying $1 million assets, $1 million houses, mansions, or, a couple, $300,000-$400,000 houses and putting down like less than 5% down on that house, right? Because that's what it took in that scenario. And the reason why this is so important to me and why I'm so serious about it is, again, roughly 4 years ago when I got started my real estate journey, early on when I was in the mentorship group. And this is a story I don't think I've ever told anybody. And it's something I kind of kick myself in the stomach. It just makes me sick to my stomach whenever I think back on it. But within that is probably one of my best learning lessons within that, right? But roughly 4 years ago, after I joined the mentorship, I was in it for less than 2 weeks. And after I started learning about this, right, I'm like, oh man, I got to apply this, right? So I was actually talking to a lady who I've been talking with for the last like 6 months. I've been trying to buy her house for like 5-6 months. The issue was it just did not make sense cash. Like the home needed some work. And her mortgage, she owed like 96, but the most that I could offer her would have been like maybe 80K. So if she would have said yes, she would have had to come to the closing table with $16,000, which doesn't make sense, right? So after I learned about subject to, I was like, you know what, like this might make sense in this scenario. So I called her, explained it to her, and she was like, okay, how do you, how does that make sense? Where's my liability? And we'll talk about all that in a few. Explain everything to her. She was on board and went under agreement, went under contract. And guess how much money that I gave her, right? And just to kind of give a background for it, she owed roughly $96,000. The home probably needed about 25 to 30K worth of work. And at this time, I had never done anything in regards to repairs or, construction. So that was going to be a hurdle that I was going to have to try to get over. And the rent in the area was like, I want to say right around $1,500. So folks, listening, maybe tune in from Virginia. This is back in Chesterfield, Virginia. Anybody who knows anything about Chesterfield, Virginia, there's a great area, great school system, appreciating area, just a really good area to own real estate in. So I was excited. So she agreed, and this is how much money I was giving her to essentially walk away, because she had tried to sell on the market and couldn't, because again, what she owed, nobody was willing to pay cash for. So if she would have agreeing to sell with me and her agreed, I was going to give her $1,200 to buy her house, to take over her 3% mortgage. Her payments was like $830 or $840, and then rent in the area, as I said, was roughly $1,500. So that's roughly $700 after property management and whatnot. It's probably about $400. I pay $1,200 to start making $400 a month. Right? Sounds great, crazy story, but guess what happened? I folded on it. Roughly about a week into it, I was like, man, I got kind of nervous. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And as opposed to ask for help, I had a group of people who were doing this on a daily. Let me try to figure it out myself. So as opposed to, again, ask for help, I try to figure it out myself, and I struggled my way through it. I had a couple, bids from contractors. I had never done it. I started getting nervous, and it wasn't necessarily that I couldn't do it, but I got fearful, right? So I was like, dang, like, what do I do? So I broke the contract, right? And then roughly a couple of weeks later, once I knew everything, I started talking with people, yada, yada. And like, if I had that 100% confidence, like it was too late. Try to go back to her and try to make it happen again, but it was too late. So missed out on an opportunity to where I could have bought a house for $1,200, literally $1,200, and could have been making by now, probably thousands of dollars in rental income. Right. And I say all that to say is, I learned so much from that, right? Because that caused me to take it more serious. And if I don't know something, just ask for help. But yeah, so that is the story of my first run into a subject to house, right? And how I failed. Years later, I've done a decent amount, either wholesale them or purchased them ourselves. And it's bodes really, really well, right? Um, if we got any questions in the comments here, no, we do not. Let me see. I got any on Facebook, on Instagram. Nope. Let me check. Cool. Yeah, but at this time, what I'll do is I think I'll just show a big screen. I'll just share my screen to kind of explain it a little bit more about what exactly subject to is, kind of paint a visual so you guys can see what exactly that is. Let's see here. Awesome. Hope everybody can see. I'm going to throw myself in there. There we go. Awesome. So everybody should be able to see the screen. I assume you can. So I do not have a stylus. So my handwriting sucks. I'm using my fingers, so don't trip too much, right? But before we jump into all this, I just want to talk about the typical buying process of a house, right? So what you have here is you have, yourself. I'll just draw a person here. This is you. That's bad, right? This is you. Awesome. So this is you. Say you want to buy a house and you want to buy it the conventional route. You're thinking about, I want to buy an investment property. I'm getting into real estate, and this is how I want to start my journey on financial freedom. So what do you need to do? First and foremost, you're going to need to know where you want to buy houses at. You're going to need to know your market. You're going to need to, obviously analyze the house, yada, yada, whatnot, or analyze the market that you're in, find houses that you are typically interested in, go on Zillow, talk with a couple of agents, make offers, things like that, right? But what you will need to do is you are going to need to speak with depending on how you want to buy it, right? So typically when people buy houses, they buy it a couple different ways if they're buying it cash. Either they use what is called hard money, a hard money lender. A hard money lender is money that somebody will lend you for a short period of time at a very, very high interest rate. So usually people who are using hard money are people who do fix and flips. So they fix up houses, kind of like HGTV, you see, they'll fix up houses to, list within like 3 or 4 months. So in order to do that, they talk to a hard money lender, they get the lump sum of money plus their rehab, fix it up, paying their monthly payments, which is really high interest only payments, and then they relist it, right? But let's just say in this case that you're going to go the conventional route. You're going to go to a bank and you're just going to apply for a investment property loan, right? You're going to apply for a loan for an investment property. So what you got to do is you got to go to the bank. And I'm going to draw, boom. This is the bank. There we go. And you got to go to the bank and you have to apply for a loan. So let's just say that you've been looking at houses in the range of, for easy numbers, of $100,000. If you go to a bank and say that you want a loan for $100,000, right? And we'll put loan 100K. Actually, awesome. So you're talking to the bank and say, hey, I want a loan for 100K. They're going to need to check for you to see if you even qualify, right? So they're going to do things such as they're going to check your, let's see, the credit. Pretend that says credit. They're going to check your credit, right? They're going to see your proof of income. So they're going to know your W-2, tax statements, whatnot. They're going to essentially run a background check, and that hit is going to hit your credit, right? So they're going to check your credit and whatnot. And what you're going to ask for if you find a house that you buy, right? If you're taking out a loan, they're going to ask for 20% down. I'm gonna put down. We call it down payment, right? DP equals down payment. So you have to put 20% down. So 20% of 100K is 20K. So you're gonna have to put 20K down. Some people do have 20K just sitting around, but a lot of people don't have 20K just sitting around, in the bank, or 20K sitting around their life savings and things like that. And this is why a lot of people don't get into real estate, or why people who do get into real estate, it takes them years and years and years to even get into it, or they'll buy one property one year and then won't buy another property for another couple of years until they can save up, or they'll try to do another different strategy, or yada, yada. But it takes people a while to, buy a house. If you're buying houses this way, it's going to take you a while to scale, right? So you find a house, then you're going to have to speak with a realtor or talk with the realtor, make offers and whatnot. That's the realtor, RE agent. Awesome. And you have to talk with the agent. So you find an agent that is willing to, you make an offer on a house, you have an agent, you agree, the offer gets accepted for 100K, you under contract, you do your inspections and whatnot. You bought your house, and you bought it at whatever the going interest rate is in the current market, right? So current market today, let's just call it 6.5% interest rate. You now have a house that you own if you bought it conventionally at a 6.5% interest rate. The issue with that is a lot of people who buy houses conventionally, right? And the reason why it's so hard to buy investment properties, and actually the interest rate will be a little bit higher for this as an investment property. But the issue with this is the monthly payments associated with that house a lot of times do not equate to the rent. So when I say equate to the rent, what exactly that means is that, let's just say you live in an area to where the rent is $1,000. Your monthly payment on this 100K house at 6.5%, don't know the math, but it may be over $1,000. So it wouldn't make sense. So you're buying a house, you put 20K in it, and you're going backwards. The benefit to creative finance, let's see if I can just create a new sheet. Oop. I'm going to scroll down. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. Ooh, it was working for me earlier. We'll just do this. Ooh. Yeah, but anywho, the benefit to creative finance is that you don't have to go through all those different hoops and things like that to acquire the house. You can buy the house without having to, let's see. There we go. Yeah, the benefit to creative finance is you can essentially buy these houses with little to no money down, meaning that you can find a homeowner yourself and you do not have to come out of pocket much money, little to no money, right? Similar to, again, myself, roughly a couple of years ago, I found a house, lady needed to sell it for, needed to sell the house. She wanted a fresh start. The house was messed up. She was a little bit of a hoarder and she could not sell it on market. Literally had her under contract for $1,200. Yes, I had to put some repairs and things into it, but putting 20 to 30K into a house that's going to make you, 400 plus bucks a month is not much is what I'm getting at, right? And it doesn't even have to be in those different in that specific situation, right? You can buy houses this way in a number of situations. When you buy houses this way, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody is in some type of financial crisis. Somebody doesn't have to be in foreclosure. Somebody doesn't have to be, behind on their mortgage and things like that. It could be just because it could be they don't necessarily have a lot of equity into their house. And so a lot of people that you see that this is a strategy, or relating it to the military, like a lot of times within the military, I see a lot of people who will move to a location, right? They'll move to a new duty station. They'll be there for roughly a year. And then what happens is they have to go back and they have to sell their house. So you've been in a duty location. Anytime you're in the military, usually somewhere for like 3 years. Every now and again, you can move somewhere, be there for like a year or two, and then have to move or do something like that, right? But I've seen a few people that I've talked to in the military, either peers or people that I've sold, helped sell their house or helped buy their houses from them, to where they moved there. they've lived in their house for roughly a year. And anybody who knows anything about the VA loan, whenever you buy a house, you're buying it with no money down. So if it's a $200,000 house, you're not putting any money down. You're coming to the table, and guess what? You owe $200,000 on the house. After a year of you living in it, you're not going to have much equity. All equity is, for those who may not know, equity is the difference between what you owe and what the house is actually worth. So if I owe $96,000, or if I owe $96,000 on a $100,000 house, my equity is technically, $4,000, right? So usually, again, folks in the military who will, use a VA loan, they don't have any equity when they use a VA loan. So what happens sometimes is they will have to come up on orders, and they leave roughly a year later. They need to move a year later, but they don't want to be a landlord. It may not make sense as a rental. They don't want to necessarily take care of a house. Like I was speaking with a gentleman, family yesterday or 2 days ago down in Hampton. They moved to California. They lived in the house all of a year and a half. They didn't have much equity in their house. And what they had it listed for, I think the home was worth roughly 210 or something like that. And they had it listed for like 215, 220. If they sold their house on market and it was listed, if they were to actually sell that house, minus realtor fees, closing costs, and things like that, they would have had to come out of pocket like right around maybe, $5,000 to $10,000, which doesn't make sense in any scenario. So what I'm still talking to them about is buying it subject to, right? So taking over their mortgage, instead of them coming out of pocket $5,000 to $10,000, let me put $5,000 to $10,000 in your pocket, and you just give me your mortgage, because your mortgage is a freaking 3% interest rate, and you can't get that in today. And what can I do with it? I can make it a long-term rental, meaning that somebody will come in there and lease it out for 12 plus months. I can make it a midterm rental, meaning that you can make it where you're renting out on for a couple months, a month to like a 2 to 3 months, 6 months, less than a year. You're renting out for less than a year. You can turn it into a short-term rental, which is like Airbnb, things like that, all with little to no money down. Again, I would have given them, maybe given them $5,000 to $10,000, and that's it. They're happy because now they, sold their house and they made some money. I'm happy because I put $5,000 to $10,000 on the house, and now I can turn it into a rental if I want to, right? So with subject to, I will say there are, I guess, some cons for the seller, or some things too that a lot of people want to look out for. Number one concern that people have whenever you buy something subject to, from my experience and what I've learned, is one of the number one things is what happens if I default, right? Say I buy somebody's house subject to, or one of the houses we own subject to. Let's just say that I get abducted by aliens, I fall off the face of the earth, and I stop making payments on those mortgages. What happens? So what would typically happen is somebody would have to go through the foreclosure process, right? The foreclosure process is long, it's expensive, and is no fun for anybody. There's a couple of ways to alleviate that, though, if you have the proper paperwork in place. And I won't go into detail about all those different type of intricacies and things like that. We can save that for later call if I do get some questions on that. But that's number one, right? Another thing is people bring up, it may affect my DTI. So it may affect my debt to income ratio. So if you don't know what your debt to income ratio is, literally how much debt that you owe in comparison to how much you're making, a year. So why is that applicable? Is applicable to people who may want to go out and get financing for, another home. So somebody sells me their house subject to, they've only lived in it for like a year or two, and now they move to say California and they want to buy another house. The bank, when they apply for a mortgage, the bank is going to say, hey, you just bought a house a year ago. Like, what's going on? Like, how are you going to be able to manage, your payments on a $200,000 house? And now you're in California, your payments are like, on a $400,000 house comparatively. Ooh. What happened? Excuse me. No. There we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Camera just shut off on me. But yeah, comparatively, right? So the way to alleviate that is a couple different ways. Again, paperwork. If you have proper paperwork in place, what's called a DTI declaration or a DTI index, what you can do is you provide a paperwork showing that, like, the seller, you provide to the seller paperwork, right? To where you've either come to the table with 2 to 3 months in advance payments. That will lower their debt to income ratio roughly 75%. And after a year of you making payments on that house, it is completely wiped away from their, their debt to income ratio. So one of the questions that I ask whenever I buy somebody's house, subject to, is, hey, how long are you going to, when do you plan on, like, whenever you sell this house, right? You're selling it to me. Are you planning to buy another house? Is this going to affect your, debt to income? Are you planning to buy a house right away? And if the answer is no, it makes sense. But if not, they say, hey, I'm planning to rent for roughly a year, or two, then we're all good. Another way to make sure that it doesn't affect the debt to income ratio is, again, paperwork. If you set it up to where it looks like as if somebody is selling you the house via like on like a lease option or like a rent to own type scenario, it doesn't affect your DTI the same. It's similar to like selling it to somebody. It appears as if it's like a rental property, right? You can show proof of somebody making payments on that mortgage. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, like in a nutshell, one of the biggest things I would say is if you want to go out and find these types of deals, you 100% can. The biggest thing is, number one, educating yourself. And then number two is, if you've never done this before, don't just try to go fumble your way through it, right? Because understand this, whenever you buy somebody's house this way, you are responsible for their mortgage. So if you're buying this house and you can't afford to make the payments, or you don't know what the paperwork looks like, don't go out there and try to, do it yourself. There are people within your community, investors within your community. There are investors who buy deals nationwide. Shoot, you can even ask me and I'll help you out on it, right? We can even partner to where I'll show you how to do exactly what, how we're doing it, and answer any questions that you may have along the way. And that way you can go out and do it in scale yourself. But ways you can find houses via subject to, a couple different ways. You can do what's called direct to agent. Direct to agent is when you will target real estate agents, houses that have been sitting on the market for, say, like 90 plus days, sitting on the market. They haven't sold yet. They may be a little bit overpriced, but that's okay, because again, if you're buying something subject to, the price that you buy it at doesn't technically matter, because what you're really interested in is the interest rate and if the property will cash flow if you use it as a rental or whatever your exit strategy is for that house. So that's one way, direct to agent. So when you call an agent, you can't just say, hey, can I buy this house subject to? Why? Because I'm going to say 90% of agents don't know what subject to is. 90% of agents don't know what owner financing is. All owner financing is if essentially you buying somebody's house directly from somebody who doesn't have a mortgage, right? So in most cases, a lot of agents don't know what any of those different investment strategies are. So you can't just go out there and ask them. You have to explain it to them, and you can't just explain it by saying, I'm buying it subject to, I'm doing this, 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 and this. You need to be prepared to answer questions. Like just the other day, I talked to an agent, 100% against it, 100% against it. I was talking to a seller about it. He was, a little bit interested, referred me to his agent. So I spoke with his agent. Agent was 100% against it. She was in my 20 years. She one of them folks I've been in this business for 20 plus years. I'm in the business for this long, and I've never heard anything about it. I don't like it. I don't think it makes sense, yada, yada. But those same agents that say that, right, those homes were listed to where they either failed to list it. I mean, they failed to sell it, meaning that it's on the market for roughly 6 months and then it expired. Or, it's priced at a point to where the seller is going to have to come out of pocket on the back end, which doesn't make sense. If you're selling a house, right, if you go selling your house on the market and your agent is going to make more money, like way more money than you do, or your agent makes money and you don't make any money, I think that is a crappy situation to be in. And I think that, in my opinion, I think that's somebody taking advantage of whatever situation that you're in. That's my opinion. Other people would think otherwise, but this is just an opportunity for a seller to always at least break even or to make something out of a situation to where they would be losing money on. But direct to agent is one way. Another way that you can find deals this way is hit what's called expired listings. So if you know any agents in your area or within your market, you can talk to agents within your market and ask them to let you know whenever houses that have been sitting on the market for a long time, ask them for their expiration date or when they expire. And once they expire, you can contact those homeowners and ask them if they're still interested in selling their houses. And if they are, because there's a reason they didn't sell in the market. It's either overpriced, it needed more work. In most cases, it's overpriced, but it's either overpriced, the agent didn't do a great job, or, it needed too much work to where it was priced at. So it was overpriced, right? You can contact them and see if they want to sell. And if they do want to sell, you can buy it on terms. You can buy it via subject to. Another way to find deals this way is through wholesalers. So I think everybody knows what wholesalers is who's listening in, but if you do not know what wholesalers are are people who find houses under market or lock up houses, get them under contract, and then they sell their rights to buy their contracts to somebody else. Long story, the quickest way to explain what a wholesaler is first deal that I did, I got a property under contract for $60,000, knew some investors in the area who were fix and flippers, and sold them my rights to that contract for $70,000. 70 minus 60 is $10,000. So when it closed in 30 days, I got a check for $10,000. So you can sell, you can wholesale subject to deals. You can wholesale subject to houses, or houses via creative finance, owner finance, subject to, cash. You can wholesale all those houses. So there is Facebook pages where literally, like, Lee and I probably get like 8 to 10 deals in our inbox a day. Not that we're, buying, because a lot of them ain't good deals, but there's a lot of things in our inbox that are subject to where wholesalers already negotiated the terms, got everything under contract. And if it makes sense, all you got to do is pull the trigger and buy that house that way. So that's another way. I hope that is helpful. Outside of that, that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys got some value out of this. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Let's scroll through Instagram one last time, see if I got anything. Okay, I did not. Cool. And then Facebook, I can't even see. I ain't even got it pulled up. And I don't think I got any via YouTube. But yeah, I hope this was extremely valuable to you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I am more than happy to go in depth about this. Like, I just want to help out as many people. This is something that has changed my life. I am all in on real estate. Real estate is something that I believe is something that is going to get me to the goals that I want to get. And if y'all don't know, Lee and I've say it all the time. I'll continue to keep saying it, but Lee and I want to become financially free by the time we're 30. And once we are financially free, financially retired, meaning we don't have to work, we plan to start a nonprofit based around financial literacy in inner city communities. So we believe our calling is from God. We believe that we're called to, help as many folks as we can. And that's what we plan to do. And I think real estate is the vehicle that is going to get us there. I believe real estate, and I know real estate is the vehicle that's going to get us there. So that's what we're pursuing. But yeah, for all you out there, if you don't know what you want to do, just take a moment, silence everything, and just close your eyes and think about what you're passionate about. What you are passionate about is very, very important. And you can make that a job, you can make that a career, you can make money off of the things that you are passionate about. And nobody should be able to tell you different. We all have dreams, we all have goals, no matter how small they are, they matter. And shame on you if you're not acting on it, but you can act on it. So go out there and do that. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hope this was valuable. If y'all have any questions, y'all know where to find me: Instagram, Facebook, wherever else, YouTube, let me know. But yeah, no time to chill, trying to build. Peace.